Hello. That was dumb. There's no way that works. Damn, so I was massively wrong about this game. In my last video, that no one watched, I was very clear about my trepidation surrounding Modern Warfare zombies, and I won't even say that I was wrong about what I said, because a lot of my problems that I talked about still apply. But I've been going almost non-stop since launch, and I've streamed over 30 hours of me just playing this game, without any need for Easter eggs or anything. Sure, there's been the story missions and camo grind, but most of my fun has just been playing around and seeing what's fun to do. I don't have any explanation for myself, and I'm not apologizing. The game's surprisingly fun, and with Season 1 launching today, that's about to become more apparent than ever. Now, I'm writing this the night the trailer came out, but I know I won't be able to get it up in time, so if you're watching this, I'll just say it now, go play the new update when you're done watching this video. I have no doubt it's absolutely fire. But for now, I'd just like to talk about the new trailer and what I'm looking forward to, as well as a little surprise at the end I want to include as a treat, and totally not just to increase this video's runtime. The trailer opens with our operators infilling from a chopper, even though that's not really how we infill in-game, but whatever, and immediately gets down to business, showing us a swirling tower of smoke with flashes of purple debris and lightning inside. Zooming out to show us this thing extending into the sky before cutting to Dr. Jansen, this game's real main character, if we're being honest, standing in front of one of the portals we can use in-game to teleport between locations. This is interesting because we know this isn't the portal to get to the new area of the game, trust me, we'll see that later. This is the exact same portal we use to fast travel. Or, you know, we would if it were intuitive at all. So what is Jansen doing here? We know she had some weird side effects from the Dark Aether, giving her migraines in Act 2, and that of course culminated with her interaction with the floating portal that showed up after we took down the Orcus. So Jansen has her experience with these portals. Speaking of the Orcus, by the way, we see a brand new worm. This time it's red. And interestingly, this seems to be taking place in the Aether Storm, given the blue and red energy on the zombies, so I really hope you can fight this thing without being in the said storm. Though there is a possibility that this is similar to Stormcaller, who was already in the game, moving around the storm and stronger than just about anything else you could find, unless you have a Wunderwaffe, but that's not the point. So it's entirely possible that this new worm, who may or may not be named Gormgaunt, may work the same way, erupting from the ground as the storm spreads. I guess by the time this video goes up, we'll know. We also have some new weapons arriving. First, the Aether Knife, a lethal piece of equipment akin to the throwing knives. Given my fondness for the throwing knives, this one's going to be a go-to for me as often as possible, since it works like the Hell's Retriever from way back in Mob of the Dead days, bouncing between zombies and returning to you. Second, we're seeing the return of the VR-11 from even further back, having not seen it since Call of the Dead and Black Ops 1. This one I can't say is going to be a mainstay for me, acting like Brainrot, turning zombies to your side, and turning mercs into zombies to help you. Also, since the Wunderwaffe and Scorcher are fittingly doing their respective elemental damage, I assume this gun and any further Wonder Weapons will do the same. We next have this lovely looking portal that'll take us into the Dark Aether infested zone that's going to be tier 4. I don't think this is where the shot with the worm boss was earlier though, since none of the zombies here have the power-up smoke around them. From there, it's just general gameplay hype footage with bosses, contracts, and more shots of the worm, culminating in the player using Mr. Peeks the Rabbit to do something. This is probably a new equipment, but I can hope it's some kind of Easter egg. There's not really much about the story that we can learn from this, but at the beginning of the trailer, we do get some lines from the mysterious voice we originally heard in Act 3, saying, "Help us, how could we have forgotten so much, forever trapped on the outside. The same line spoken to Jansen in the Act 3 cutscene, and none of these give us too much to theorize on beyond what we were already thinking about regarding Samantha and the other Dark Aether entities. That said, call me pessimistic, but I feel like Sam and Eddie from Cold War simply aren't going to be making an appearance, instead being saved for the next game, COD Gulf War. So I really don't know what these voices could be coming from, but I'm excited to find out. Now, before I go into my final spiel for this video, I just want you guys to know I'm still working on new videos, as well as streaming every Friday, whatever game I really like, and streaming 2 or 3 other days out of the week just playing this game. In fact, I'll be streaming Season 1 after this video goes live, so if you want to be notified about that, make sure to click the subscribe button and the bell below, and YouTube will let you know what's going on. Please do subscribe. I want 150 subs before the year's over, and I'm actually pretty close. That said, I want this video to last just a bit longer. So Have you wondered where the Orcus got that weird-ass name? Well, stick around for what may or may not be the reason. Look, Treyarch's been very good at incorporating real-world aspects into their lore, all the way back to the secret Nazi experiments that kicked this whole thing off. So when I heard the name Orcus, I had to know what the hell was in the kitchen while Treyarch was cooking. Cringe aside, looking into the history is actually pretty interesting, seemingly being traceable back to the nightmare that is Roman mythology. See, everyone thinks that the Roman gods are just Latin names for the Greek gods, and while that's true for some, it is frustratingly more complicated than that. See, the Romans had a ton, and I mean a metric fuckload, of cultural inspirations, and tying them all together into a blobby little eldritch horror that we call Roman mythology. The primary source is, of course, Greek mythology, and relevant to today's topic, that means the Greek god Hades, ruler of the underworld and the souls of the dead. Not this guy. He got shuffled up with a bunch of other underworld stories and shat out as Pluto. Now, I could give you a terrifyingly unhinged breakdown of Pluto and why he's my man crush Monday, but instead, I'd like to talk about this interesting breakdown of personalities, or subdeities, or however you want to see it. Namely, this little guy here. His name is Orcus. Oh hey, that's like that worm guy I was just talking about. Orcus was the name used to refer to the more malicious and torturous side of the afterlife, and therefore of the god himself. There is some potential ties to the Etruscan religion, but we're going to blatantly ignore those, as surface level research says that was a naming mistake done by explorers later on, who mistook a Cyclops for the god. Okay, actually, we're not gonna ignore it, because the Cyclops element interests me. See, having a worm named after a god of the dead is all well and good, but tying in these monsters that could have been inspired by volcanoes of all things means we could be looking at multiple worms that could all have some relation to natural disasters. I mean, it's not that out there of a theory. The thing already causes earthquakes. But even if the name is only in reference to the god, it's still fun to play with, since Orcus is one of the few gods from Roman mythology to survive through the ages, being worshipped as a folk figure up through the Middle Ages, and even being celebrated by rural Europeans to this day. Rural Europeans, kinda hard to say. I love this, because despite being extremely obscure to general audiences, the name means more culturally than something major like Jupiter or Neptune, which has way too much meaning wrapped up in it to even be noticeable. Using a lesser known name that's still being used in reverent ways to this very day is fun, and I think it adds a layer of intrigue to the monster that will likely never be reflected in the game. Anyway, that's about all the content I could squeeze out of this 1 minute 11-second long trailer, so go out and play the new update. I'll be joining you as soon as I can. Of course, remember to be gay, do crimes, and we'll see you next time. Now I'm gonna go back to researching obscure Roman mythology and seeing how I can incorporate it into more videos.